Good evening and welcome to The Real Study with your hosts, Mr. Snitbits,
Welcome back to A Real Study.
Black Girl Marvel,
But I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Mr. Marvelite,
not knowing anything about the film.
all the movie things,
And like I was locked in right away.
the pre-review with Super Gummy Guru,
Review.
and me, the Real Study movie voice guy. Let's go to the poster wall.
Good evening and welcome to The Real Study. My name is Mr. Snidbits, and as always, to my left is Black Girl Marvel, and tonight we have Blind Biggie with us again, and we are discussing some interesting films. So, disclaimer, tonight we will be discussing films that deal in illicit substances and other things of that nature. The discussion will probably not center on those things, but as they come up, please forgive us that we are not talking about or doing any of these things. We are just critiquing films about them. So that said, we will be discussing Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the Johnny Depp Benicio del Toro film done by Terry Gilliam, also written by Hunter S. Thompson. And then we will also be doing the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, starring Heath Ledger, as well as a myriad of other people. We'll get into that. Also directed by Terry Gilliam. And finally, Scanner Darkly, which is a Richard Linklater film starring Keanu Reeves. All of them have one very specific theme. And
Good evening.
that is all of those substances we were talking about. So that is part of this evening discussion. So how are you guys doing?
I'm tired.
Just tired?
I'm like extremely tired. I went to like a game night yesterday, and maybe I can't drink Angry Orchards because they're too sugary and my system can't take it. And I've been drained this entire day. I've been so drained, and all I've been wanting to do was sleep, but I knew I just couldn't do that all day. And I didn't finish a Scanner Darkly, so I got right. I'll tell you where I got to. I got right to the part where she's like, I know you've been Bob Arthur this entire time. Like I know it's Donna. So
then we have like this much to fill you in on. So you're
yeah,
okay.
I have I know I'm super close to the end because I've seen it before. I've seen it before, but I haven't. I was very young when I saw it, so I was like, I remembered it, but I was like, I kind of don't at the same time, and so that's the part that I ended up off on. So
all right.
Yeah.
Well, we do have the pre-review back this evening, so we'll be getting into that.
Hey,
so good to see Sean back.
Yeah.
And he's back on TikTok as well. And we just got a new follower, Pancakes That Are Flat, which is a good thing.
A friend of Blind Biggie's kids.
All right. That's what we're.
Pancakes.
All right. But welcome.
Hi,
and
Joker.
do be aware that this is a PG-13 show, so just keep that in mind.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes.
It is Father's Day, and happy Father's Day, Blind Biggie.
Happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you. And thank you for the happy Father's Day, Blala. Can't really
That's
even.
to both of you.
Yeah.
That's to both of you.
Appreciate that.
So I mean, I don't have no kids. I don't have a penis, so
So neither of those things will let you
neither
become
of those
a
things
father.
will let me
right.
be a father. So
It's not all it's cracked up to be. That's okay.
This is also, I think, one of the worst holidays. No offense to all fathers, but this is the one that pretty much nobody cares about. Yeah, at all. And that's
next week, Joker. Next week.
What did he say?
When is the Doctor Strange review?
Yeah. So next week is going to be the multiverse episode. We're going to do two movies, both dealing in multiverses. And so it'll be Everything Everywhere All at Once and Doctor Strange.
Oh, yay.
So it'll be fun. And we're going to have a special guest.
Joker, hit us up in the Discord. We already have a special guest for that, but we could probably do another, something.
Welcome, Fortnite Battle Pass. Thank you for the follow. 2 follows in the first 7 minutes of the show. We'll take it. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, we like it. Good start.
Yay.
So we do have 3 movies as well as the pre-review to get into, so we should probably jump right in. But yes, our special guest next week will be Mike. He's actually Superhero Talk on TikTok. He's also the co-creator of the Nerd Initiative well as an Emmy award-winning ABC journalist. So we'll have a certified Emmy winner on our show, which is pretty crazy and fun. And he's a huge Marvel person too. So we're gonna have 3 big Marvel people. We'll have Black Girl Marvel, Mr. Marvelite, and Superhero Talk on our show. So there's gonna be a lot of Marvel talk. Anyway, that said, let's get right into this. We're going to start with Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and I would love to go straight to Black Girl Marvel because I believe you've never seen this film, and
No.
this is an interesting movie for people to watch for the first time.
This film was crazy. It was like weird. I kind of didn't understand it, and then I did understand it at the same time. Like, but I don't, sometimes I'm like, what's the point of movies? And sometimes I can't find the point. And I'm like, maybe that's the point. Like, so, because I feel like all movies are made for a reason, and if I don't get what the director got out of it, maybe I get something for myself. I might not always be on the mark for stuff. But this is weird. I feel like this was the beginning stages of Jack Sparrow for Johnny Depp. Especially like how he walked. His stance was very wide. His stance was like very wide. Benicio del Toro for me was like the standout for me because I don't know, he was just everything he did was very like high octane and big energy, and it's like I've seen Benicio like that, but I haven't seen Benicio like that. So it was just like it was kind of crazy. Yeah, like I thought it was interesting. I don't know if I liked it or not. I probably have to watch it like maybe 2 more times to say whether I liked it or not. I don't dislike it, but it's not like a favorite. It was weird. I got like sorry, I know this is PG-13 and sorry to all these. He was legal in my state. I got a little high when I watched this, and that was trippy because I was like, what is happening? Like I think a couple of times, and so it was just like this weird amalgamation of humans. It was weird. I couldn't really put words to it, but those are the words I have for right now.
All right. How about you, Blind Biggie? I know you've seen this movie a couple of times at least, and you've claimed this as possibly an up there film that you enjoy.
Yeah, way back in the day when I worked for Blockbuster, of course, back in when '99 is probably when it hit VHS, I think. I don't know. I watched it once and I was just floored. It was great. I'd always heard and read a little bit about Hunter S. Thompson and his, the fact that he's really eccentric in certain ways.
Couldn't tell.
And this this movie where Johnny Depp plays Hunter or Duke Raoul is exactly what I expected, honestly. But this movie has a lot to love besides Johnny Depp, even though he is the lead. Benicio del Toro is fantastic. You also have Steve Barrico in this, and small roles by lots of people like Ellen Barkin, and you also have
Cameron
Diaz. You've
For like
got
a second
Mona
and a
from
half,
Who's the
right?
Boss. Yeah, you've got Mona from Who's the Boss in there playing a check-in girl. So I really appreciated all of the moments in this film because in my early 20s, I was pretty close to this guy. And just the way they made it look, the way Terry made it look, the way the cinematography, cinematography was just gritty and dirty and vile. And I think that's what they wanted to convey.
I would agree with that. Let's add a couple more names that were shocking, I think, to if most people don't know. Tobey Maguire is in this movie, and he plays the pastiest, white-haired, long white-haired, weird-looking dude I swear I've ever seen in a movie. And he's not the weirdo in the movie. That's the thing that's
Just
like
admiring the shape of your skull.
he's the guy they pick up hitchhiking in the beginning. Yeah, if you don't remember that law. Am I losing you, La? You there?
Those apple drinks don't joke around.
I'm sorry. My aunt called or something. So
okay.
sorry.
Okay.
I was listening to her voice. So what was your question?
We were talking about Tobey Maguire being in this movie as the straight white hair.
I was freaked out.
Yeah.
I was like, what is wrong
But he's
with
not
his
the
hair?
weirdo. Like he's the totally
No,
normal
he's not.
guy.
He's actually quite sane.
Just a guy,
He jumped
right?
out of that convertible because he was like, they were acting nuts, and they were acting nuts.
They were. I mean, there's not really much of a moment in this film where they're not acting nuts. And
No,
as a
it
person,
was.
oh,
It moved very fast.
it does,
It
but yet it's a long movie, so like it's weird because there's
yeah,
many scenes in it. Um,
yeah.
the strangest thing to me about this movie is that it's kind of a snapshot of two eras. So it's a snapshot of the 90s, right, where what the Gen Xers were doing and what they thought of boomers in their era. And this whole movie
Mhm.
surrounds the concept of the boomers were, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but the summer of love folks, the people from the 60s were
Boomers. Yeah.
were trying to get over the fact that no matter how hard they tried, things didn't ultimately go their way. And by the time
Right.
the 70s hit, and then of course the 80s, as we all know, things kind of stopped being that way, and that momentum completely shifted. And there's even a quote in the movie that blew my mind, where he talks about if you go up on a steep hill in Las Vegas, you can look out and you can see where the wave of that
watermark.
momentum crashed up against and made a high water mark and then washed away. And it's such a
Love
that.
surreal moment, and it's kind of got me teary. I'm like, oh shit, man, that's no wonder you resorted to doing all these drugs and going completely off the deep end because you
That's where
thought you
he's
had made an
singing
assumption.
from.
Right. So like it's kind of like
But
what the
also,
hell?
it's like it kind of makes sense, like because like throughout history, like the heavy thinkers or the people with a lot on their brain tend to go towards drugs because it like dulls them down. It kind of like mellows them out in a way, which depending on what he was taking, he didn't really mellow, but you could tell by like his voiceovers, which I assume is just him writing, because that's pretty much what I assume. You can tell that um you can tell that he's very smart. He's very intelligent. He's like very in the know. But sometimes those people who kind of like see things a little bit differently, the world can be a lot for them. And I think for him, the world was a lot because he couldn't focus. And then it was like, okay, do drugs. The the drugs will help me focus. But he was doing so much in such small periods of time that they all kind of like colluded and turned him into this thing, but he still had this purpose. Like, I gotta write, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, how could I, okay, and then it's like he still has the forethought to take care of this young girl, even though he didn't really care to take care of her.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Like
did that interrupt his
he
escape,
took,
and that's why he didn't like it?
not at all. He took care of her a little bit, but then it was selfish for why he wanted to take care of her. He's like, we gotta get her out of here. Then he wanted to pimp her out, so it was like it went
Well, no,
all
I
types
think
of
that was
ways.
his way of telling his friend, "What do you want to be, this guy?" I think that was not. Uh, well, it's Thompson. I mean, we know he's using a fake name, so Hunter was not trying to convey that. He was like saying, "Well, if you're gonna bring this girl back to this, room anyway, why don't we
Oh, so
just
you
take
think it's
it?"
like
Oh,
he
he
was trying to make
totally
him
was making him
aware? He
feel
was trying to like
guilty.
make him aware
It's
of his
how
situation.
Dr. Gonzo
Yeah.
understands things. So Dr. Gonzo had to have things taken to the extreme for him to get it. And then when he got
Right.
it, he started to
Yeah.
feel guilty. He's like, "Oh, damn,
Cause
don't make me feel
'cause
bad." And it's like,
was
well,
that
you
his
should have been
lawyer?
his lawyer. Yeah.
Was his
As your
cause
attorney, I advise you
yeah, because
look into Dr. Gonzo.
Benicio played the lawyer, right? Am I getting that
Yep.
That's
confused?
right. And
It
it's
was just
Dr.
it was
Gonzo
just
is the lawyer.
yeah, it was just so much drugs flying around that I was like very trying to keep it focused on who these characters are, what positions they play in each other's lives. But I think for me, this film was just kind of weird. And I like weird, but sometimes weird can be chaotic too if you're not kind of. Because to me, everything, everywhere, all at once, it's weird, but it's manageable chaotic, like chaoticness when you watch it. This was chaotic in a way that I didn't know what strings, who would, what attached to what flip. It was just very like
There's
it was so much.
there's weird, like everything everywhere all at once, but then you have a movie like this where you take weird and you add frantic and you add paranoia and you have
Yeah.
a wild
Yeah, that's why
time.
I said it's chaotic. It's
Right.
weird, but it's a chaos that I couldn't like cipher through. Usually, when it's like something's like weird and chaotic, I can cipher through it, and I'm like, this is nuts, but this kind of, and this one I was just like,
This
all
is a
these
whole other
images.
level.
Yeah, I'm like all these images flying in my face, and I'm like, this is not a one time watch of a film. I have to watch this
Right.
a couple times.
You
know?
do. You really do.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Now, Lala, if you didn't know, this was actually a book written by Hunter S.
Yeah.
Thompson.
I knew
And it
that.
was a very popular book in the 80s. And the thing about Hunter is that what you're watching on screen with Johnny is Hunter S. Thompson. That's Johnny Depp having studied Hunter as a person because they hung out a lot, like a lot.
A lot.
just as friends. And so he got to know him and his mannerisms and concepts. And what's crazy is there's another movie. Fear and Loathing is not the first Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas movie made. There's another one called Where the Buffalo Roam with Bill Murray playing Hunter S.
Bill
Thompson.
Murray.
And then you've got Peter Boyle playing Dr. Gonzo. And so it's a very different movie. It's a little bit more of 80s slapstick than it is, it still deals in
Okay.
some of it, but it's a little more palatable if you want to just watch that one to see without the lizards in the puke floor and the
I don't know. I mean, the Johnny Depp one is kind of like the known, kind of like the one that people I kind of want to watch this a couple more times because it's just I need to know what I don't know. I guess I'll say because it's sick, and I think a lot of things. And if I'm being very honest, a lot of things, a lot of symbolism, like kind of like went over my head because I was just kind of like, what's happening? Like I was very much like, what's this story? Like, because sometimes what I do is I find the story and then I can like bond with the characters and be in the moment. I couldn't really find the purpose of the story.
well, there's no
of this.
protagonist.
But again, yeah, and again, maybe that's the point. Like I said in the beginning, but for me, my brain needed that to latch onto, and it didn't have it. So I was like, okay, this is a movie I have to watch again. Like I have to watch this movie again.
It's just a wacky adventure that takes place in this time, and with everything involved, it's a very big jumbled mess to kind of take in, but it's also directed so brilliantly. It's one of those movies that definitely sticks with you, I think.
Now you can tell the people that were involved in this movie have done a lot of the things that are in this movie, and I don't mean the like hurting people or I'm talking about all the illicit substances. You can tell the people that did this knew what they were doing when they made this movie, because the visuals and all the craziness you see, the way that things kind of are weird at moments, the angles they use. There's the moment where Johnny Depp has done the what is it, the adrenal gland, adrenochrome.
Yeah, the adrenochrome, yeah.
And he has taken one. He was told to take one drop. He takes 5 because he's having fun just taking it.
And not even drops. Like he took a couple
like
drops.
He kept like licking the whole thing. Yeah.
And then he was like fine. Then when he got in the bed, he opened it and then
he drank a little,
like,
right? And so Dr. Gonzo was like, I think you took too much. And he's like, lean into it or you're gonna have a stroke. And when he does, right, when he leans into it, the cinematography and the angles and the shots of Johnny's face in those moments, I'm like, I'm not terrified by Dr. Gonzo turning into a Satan creature. I'm terrified by Johnny in that moment, right? That to me was the scary part. Like, I guess he is the protagonist, but it's hard to say because I don't relate to him and I don't care, right? If he were to die, I'd be like, well, yeah, his eyes, they were like bright yellow and really odd.
Yeah, but you know what it reminded me of? Because he was just like, when he was in the bed and he's like, so where did you get this from? Like, who did you get this from? And then like Dr. Gonzo was like, a Satanist. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, it's like a Satanist. So like when he drank from the bottle and then he was like, the camera was like very zoomed in. He had the towel over his head. He looks kind of like a satanic nun in a way.
I can
He
see
looks
that.
very like satanic, and I was just like, because like part of me was like, is that actually what he looks like, or is that what he thinks he looks like? You know what I mean? Like, I was just like very curious because I felt like a lot of this was like, kind of similar to a Scanner Darkly, where like the guy was so high that he was imagining things, like he was like seeing things. So for me in Fear and Loathing, it was kind of like a similar thing. Like, okay, I know these things happen. Like, don't get me wrong. I know you destroyed these hotel rooms, destroyed this car. Like, I know these things happen. But certain things that look more fantastical, I was like, okay, are they thinking this is what's happening? Like, this is their view. Like, we're looking, we're seeing some real stuff, but then we're also
all the lizards
their view
were what Johnny or what Hunter saw when they arrived because he had taken all that stuff before they got there, and it was supposed to hit right when they got there.
So, part of me was like, I'm like, is it actual bats or is he imagining bats? And then he runs over a bat, and I'm just like.
And as we know from last week's episode in Rango, that Rango takes place in the same universe as Fear and Loathing. So those bats are not just bats, but those are bats with moles on their backs fighting against,
Because he's like bats, and I was just like, and I was just like, he was like, we can't stop. It's bat country, and I was just like, but is it bats? But he ran over a bat, and I was just like, is it actually bats? Like it was like in a way, if you're sober, this will make you not sober. Like,
Right. That's kind of, I
like
think,
this
what they were going
movie,
for.
it'll bring you into the high with them, and it's like a weird place.
Very surreal, yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird place.
Let's see. Who else was in this movie? Mark Harmon shows up for like a split second as a freaking reporter.
Oh, what's his name? What's his name? Wasn't that Stabler as the gay concierge?
Chris Maloney.
Christopher Maloney? Yeah,
Maloney,
wasn't that
that's right.
Stabler? I was looking at him, I was like, is this on your resume, sir? Because
It
did
should
not
be.
know you were
It's on
in
his
this.
IMDb, that's for sure.
And I
He got-
didn't know that you're being a gay man, and I was just like, this is kind of funny. And,
You got Gary Busey as the most nonsensical police officer in all of movie history.
listen, he asked for a kiss. I said, wait, you're lonely. I said,
I'm
what is
lonely.
this film? He's like,
It's
before you go, can I have a kiss?
Michael Jester, who played the head DA, who explained the various levels of the crazy psychotic drug killer, and why they go after people. You've got
Yeah.
Flea as as a musician. It's listed as a musician. Go figure.
Which is what he is.
right.
So thanks for informing us.
Right, thanks. But he played the weird, like, 70s hippie guy, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Lyle Lovett.
The sniffer. Yeah,
right.
Lyle Lovett, the cowboy.
Penn Jillette. Vern Troyer, who was in 2 of the movies we watched tonight. Debbie Reynolds is actually listed.
Just like Johnny Depp.
Right.
Just like Johnny Depp, 2 movies for both of those. I saw Vern Troyer, and I was like, hey, he's back. I was
Yep.
like, hey.
And Johnny was in 2 of them as well. That's a good
And
point.
Johnny was in 2, yep.
Vern Troyer, Debbie Reynolds was actually credited for her voice because she is the voice when they go to see her show, and they're booted out immediately, as they should be. It's funny because I want to like Dr. Gonzo, but he's not a good human
No.
at all.
No.
I even think there's a questionable flag flying in his window when they show his office. Like I worry about that gentleman. And then I worry about the stuff that, you hear Raoul Duke constantly referring to his race, constantly referring to how, well, if he weren't this guy, then his race would be an issue and things like this. And this movie is dated. But at the same time, we're talking about a movie written by a guy who was big in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
Not to excuse it, because I'm not at all, but it's just interesting to look back at movies I would have not blinked at in 98.
But I feel like, some stuff you have to excuse, especially if this is a film that's made back, and when it's made back, you know what I mean? Like, we can't go, if that's the case, then we need to go over all of film history and remove, all films will be gone from the ether of film. So I feel like because we deal with movies in the time in which they're in, and then we judge them for the time in which they're in. So, like, I can't use my 2022 brain to go back and be like, oh my God, like, oh, how dare. Yes, they did that back then. Like, that was okay. As a society, we were like, that's fine. But as a society now, we're like, that's not fine. So a lot of these movies could be made now,
right?
Which I'm kind of happy about, because, like, let's grow a little bit. Like, let's grow.
But that's what it's showing us, right?
Right. And I can't condemn the stuff back there. But also Christina Ricci. We didn't bring her up. Christina Ricci.
Yeah.
She played Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. That's what she's like.
A lot of Beatles references in these movies. I wonder why.
Beatles are everybody's favorite, so that makes sense to me.
I did like the brashness of Raoul Duke, and how even in the lawyers' convention, he was sitting there on the floor doing stuff.
Doing coke, yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, this is how you've got to be a ballsy individual to do that. And I think because nobody would ever expect him, he got away with it. Like, nobody.
Yeah. But also, I feel like when you do things as though nobody's paying attention, nobody pays attention. Right. But because everything he did in a way of like a confidence, like an air about himself, that was very much like, oh, it's fine. No, it's fine. Like when he dodged the cop, and he was just like, he was telling us in his mind, like, he was saying, like, this is why I'm doing it, because he's gonna think this, and when I do this, and he got away with it.
I love that. I love that he's like, if you speed up to 80, but then turn on your signal, they won't know what you're doing, right?
Doing exactly. He's like, and then if you did it, like, and then you turn, and he's like, well, what are you doing? Because you know that you're not. So he's just outside of his car, like that.
Right.
And I'm just like, so everything. I noticed that everything he did within this film, he moved. There was never like a, should I not do this, or It was very much like, yeah, I should go about this, and I should do it. Like, even when Dr. Gonzo flipped out at Ellen Barkin, which you cannot tell me that Hollywood was like, dang, we need a new Ellen Barkin, and they were like Cameron Diaz because she looked just like Cameron Diaz in the mask. Like she looks just like her, and I was just like, okay, Hollywood, okay. I was like, all right. Um, but when he flipped out on her, it was like he was like, I guess it's time to go. And he gathered all his things, and then he took the plate, and then he was just like, maybe I shouldn't do it. And I just put the plate put the plate back down, and I'm
But
just
that
like,
shows right there. That shows his indifference to everything. He was
yeah,
more invested in what he
yeah,
was writing, his food, and his high than he cared about
yeah.
anything else ever. Like ever. What's
Exactly.
interesting about Hunter is that a lot of that's not true about him. Like he was an advocate and he was actually very staunchly anti-war and a lot of various things. So much so that, and you may not, I'm not sure if you know anything more than he wrote this movie in a book, but Hunter S. Thompson actually unalived himself back in '05 uh, for political reasons. He actually did it because of George Bush, which is odd, but it is true. He had claimed if George Bush got a second election that do that, and he did do that, which is that's conviction for you. I can't really blame a
Johnny
person.
was there too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole documentary about it, and this is something Biggie brought up. But
Gonzo.
it's called Gonzo, and it's sad as hell, because you do see somebody that
mean,
you know is
that's
talented, but
yeah, that's
it's brutal.
I don't know. Part of me is like, what do you think? Um, like, what do you think that will accomplish? You know, I don't want to like knock anybody's convictions because who are we if we don't have our convictions, things that we stand for, things
Mhm.
that we stand on. But taking your life didn't change like Bush getting not like I don't know. I don't know. I
It
don't I
changed
don't want to
nothing.
say anything. I don't want to disrespect or anything. I don't like disrespecting the dead or anything, but like I just feel like maybe you could have brought more awareness through your I know, right? Yeah, it is a lot. And I'm like, well maybe you could have brought more awareness in your writing as an author or as your directing as direct like you know what I mean? Maybe you could have shed some light on some things because obviously you had a voice or obviously this was very strong a strong opinion that you have, and taking yourself out does nothing.
But if
It
this
does nothing.
movie or this book, because I know that a lot of the book is that's indicative of how he felt. Even the wave moment, the quote we talked about in the
Hmm.
beginning, if
Yeah.
that's pulled right from the book, which I'd never read the book and I probably should, but if that's pulled right from the book, then
Hmm.
he was already
You
crushed
kind of
in the
have a
70s and he kept,
yeah,
by the time 2005 hit, I wouldn't, I'm now still younger than he would have been then. And I'm tired in life at 45. So I can only imagine at 50 plus, 55, how tired you are.
yeah,
And his mind was a lot of what we see in this film. Like that's a lot of his
yeah,
actual mind.
yeah.
So I can't say that I could ever get
I
inside
can
his head
get
enough
how
to
it
know
can be.
how or why. Yeah.
Yes, I can get how it can be tiring because I'm tired at 35 and
Right. Biggie, you
all this
got something to say. I can tell.
stuff.
It was the ultimate form of protest. To give your life for a cause you believe in. That's the ultimate form of protest. But it's hard for the average person to look at it that way. I think for someone who's devoted their entire life to their writing and their stance politically and talking about the war in Vietnam and all that, and Mr. Snippets was right. The man was crushed, and he was just hanging on, honestly. So
No, I
I
get
mean,
that. I just never
yeah,
think suicide is the answer. I don't think it helps anything because there's one less voice that's gone
right.
that's probably needed in like in a movement. But again, I under like here's the thing with anybody that because I'm a suicide survivor, so like I definitely understand it. I definitely understand like the weight. I definitely do.
Right.
But I just I told myself I would never do that again. Like I said, I'll never try to take my life again because it's you're nobody's here on purpose, I believe. I really do. Like, I don't care what parents say. It's like, we just had you by mistake in the back of the Corvette or whatever it is. Like, I think anybody that's lucky to make it to living is supposed to be here for a reason. You are to contribute in some way, and it might not be in a way that, it's a huge difference in 1,000 people's lives, but maybe your presence saves somebody else
Well,
or maybe or maybe something. Yeah, I don't know. I just
First, I'm glad you're both still here. So thank you for still being here, pushing on. That's awesome of both of you. Second, maybe much, and I hate to, people hate when I reference M. Night Shyamalan because it's a mixed bag. But I love M. Night
very
Shyamalan.
true.
And one of my favorite parts of Lady in the Water is the fact that there's this average person that becomes the muse for the person that's going to change the world, right? And I love that trope. I love that concept because
Yeah.
maybe one day in the future, or maybe even right now, some kid has discovered Hunter S. Thompson and read through his life, his memoirs, and is inspired by what he.
Yeah.
So
Right.
for all we know, he's making an impact we don't even know is here yet.
Yeah. I mean, you can still make an impact in death because I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some people that watch Heath Ledger and be like, "Oh my God, I want to be like that,"
Actor,
or
right?
I want to bring what he brought and things like that. And I'm not saying that, but also it's like that was 2005. That was almost 20 years ago that he passed away, almost. And it's just like you could probably have given more. But again, I can't deduce the weight of this world on other people and how they can handle it.
Right.
So I don't want anybody to like anything that I'm saying. I don't want anybody to think that I'm like ragging on Hunter S. Thompson, or I'm
No,
like,
no.
how dare he do such a
Of course
thing.
not.
But I just also I just met people out in the ether. I know you guys won't judge me, but it's just like other humans who don't really.
Well, we're
know
gonna
me
check them. We also don't want you judging Black Girl Marvel
Yeah.
for this because we feel the same way. Like it's tricky.
Yeah,
I
like
hate that he's gone and that he did
Yeah.
that, but I also understand why.
I understand why he did it, and like I said, I tried it and didn't stick, obviously, and so I said I'll never do something like that again because I don't know. I just feel like if he gave us something like this, and it's again this, I don't think this is the first thing I've seen of him. I don't think. Sometimes I don't pay attention to directors, which is kind of
Terry
sad.
Gilliam, you've seen many things from. You just
wanna
don't know it.
Because I want to be. Oh, for sure. Oh yeah, I know that. But I mean like Hunter S. Thompson. I'm just like I
Oh
think
yeah,
I've seen
this
from him. I
is
just
his
haven't really
thing.
paid.
This is
Just
his
haven't
thing.
really paid like attention to like his works and things like that, his writing and stuff like that. But
Oh, he wrote the Rum Diary.
yeah, that's another Johnny Depp one. So it's just
Yep. He's playing Hunter also.
yeah.
Is he really? But now
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
problem with that movie, so it'll be harder for me to watch. But anyway,
It
but we
takes
know
place
why.
before Fear and Loathing.
Interesting. So that's Hunter before he got Thompson.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was nice. That's nice. Eddie.
So
Nice.
I think that because we have two other movies, and I actually think that Scanner Darkly is going to spark some pretty interesting conversation, just because I think Philip K. Dick concepts always do. I think
Yeah.
they're a lot grittier with more to sink your teeth into philosophically. Drug-addled gonzos in the desert. That should be the next name around gonzo. Drug-addled gonzos in the desert. It's a title
Is
for
that a
anybody who wants
Muppet
to
movie?
Now I want to see this movie as a Muppet movie.
Yeah, me too.
But Johnny stays. Everybody else is a Muppet.
Honestly, I would dig that.
Yeah.
I think Johnny could do some of his best work against the Muppets.
The rule
really
has to
do.
be. You always have to have a
Thank you,
human
Janet.
character. You
Yeah.
can't just have Muppets. It works. So,
Yeah.
although I think maybe Dr. Gonzo would have been even stranger if he was talking to a Muppet the whole time.
What
Well,
if
if he was
Dr.
wrong.
Gonzo? We're talking to Gonzo.
So Gonzo is playing Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
I'll watch that. Okay, so
Gonzo
let's go
Gonzo.
ahead. Let's go ahead and rate this film and move on to the next film, or we can even hit the pre-review early. I kind of want to see what Sean's got for us. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's only a couple minutes tonight, but there's summer movies. There's only a handful at a time because they fill the theaters with them now. They've changed the way they do that. It used to be in the summer you could go watch 10 different movies. Now it's 3.
Yeah.
Because they fill the theaters with all the screens are one movie. Like you guys suck. There's more movies than this. I know there are. Anyway, so we're going to do the preview after we rate. We'll go ahead with Black Girl Marvel. What is your rating? And if your 12-year-old self watched this movie, I would have concerns.
I mean, my 12-year-old self watched a lot of things. And my 12-year-old self loved Johnny Depp back then, so she probably would have watched it if she was like privy to it. Like if her mind was like focused on it, but she wasn't. So I think my 12-year-old self would have been like, honestly, my 12-year-old self would have stopped this in the middle of watching. I'd have been like, I'm gonna go outside and play some games. I guess. Like I think my brain would have shifted.
There's a lot of
But me
vomit in this
now,
movie.
it is a lot of vomit in this movie. But good transitions though. I would say. Let me just say that, like, as a movie cinematography wise and like directorial wise, like scenes, how things are cut, clipped, nicely done. Like I had no problems with that. Like usually I'm always finding something in the film where I'm like, why did they edit? Like why did they cut it? Wasn't So that was fine in that aspect. But if I had to rate this now, as an adult, I will give this. I'll give it a 6.5
Because you want to revisit it.
because I want to revisit it. So I can't really give a hard, like, because I'm usually like I give it a solid whatever and
Right. So this
like
is a soft 6.5.
this is a soft 6.5, and I'll have to rewatch again, and I probably won't even make a review on Letterboxd until I watch it again
But it could go
because
up or it could go down.
it could go up. It could go up. I don't think it could go further down because I've already seen it. Like I would probably rate it lower if I thought like maybe it'll be higher, but like it's a soft 6.5 with a possibility of going maybe like a 0.5 or one up or something.
Fair. Fair. How about you, Biggie?
12-year-old me probably would have switched it onto GI Joe. So,
Hey, Joe.
but exactly. But no, adult me. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a solid 9. Just because it's one of those movies that took place during a time and a place that was very surreal, and the characters in this are surreal, and Terry Gilliam does a great job of conveying that to the audience. And I feel that everything from the look of the cinematography to the chosen music is all there with purpose, and I feel that it this is one of my favorite movies of all time. And aside from the parts with, you know, misogynistic garbage in it, I love this film. So I will give it a solid 9.
Solid 9. I like it. So myself, I actually the rating for this movie I used to have higher. I think it's 8.5. I would say now it's come down to closer to a 7, mostly because it doesn't make sense unless you know exactly what they're dealing with. And I don't think anybody should be going out and doing what they learn about it.
No.
So it's a good, like Biggie just said, it's a great snapshot in history. It's an interesting film because any film made in the 90s about the 70s is pretty succinct, but it's still a snapshot of that era. While the whole thing takes place in 71, I still think what we thought about things then is more important to what the script shows us than what 71
Yeah.
would have brought us with them. Definitely worth watching. As a 7, that puts it up to a level where I would say everybody should check this film out. If you're an adult, if you're not an adult, I would encourage you to wait until at least you understand the themes of the film before watching it. I'm not trying to gatekeep. People can watch stuff whenever they're ready.
Right.
Not up to me to decide. But that said, 7 is where I'm at with it now. We're gonna.
Can I
please.
real quick? I've been reading up on Hunter S. Thompson. I was curious about the whole suicide, and it seems like a lot contributed to his his suicide. Like, I guess his family said that he's always been kind of depressed or sad. Like February has always been like that month for him, and he had issues about getting older. He said he lived 17 years past what he thought he should have,
Mhm.
and it's just a lot contributed to that. So
Yep.
I don't, because I know we said it was like a whole like George Bush thing. I just wanted to be, I don't want it
That's what he said politically and publicly.
politically and publicly, yeah. But then it's like his suicide note read something differently
Sure.
as well. So I want to say it's like a lot of those things.
And that's why I encourage people to go watch the
Together,
documentary
yeah.
because I'm not trying to speak
sure.
for all the
For
details.
sure, and I just wanted to throw that out there. Like it's I'm pretty sure George Bush, because I'm depressed too when I see George Bush talking.
Or
I'm
other
sure George
presidents.
Bush or other presidents, really. So I figure it's him, and then it's other factors in his life that accumulated. Because they said he's always suffered He's like he had years of alcohol and cocaine abuse that attributed to his depression, which kind of makes sense if you watch Fear and Loathing. You're like,
Right.
oh well,
No,
what
I'm
is
pretty sure he did everything he talked about in that book.
everything? Oh,
Maybe not
I'm
to the extent,
sure.
but he
So you
did
No,
watch
but
do
I'm
it.
sure.
Right.
But he did do it like over time. Maybe not like how they did it pretty much in like a weekend or a week or however it was, a few days. But I'm pretty sure he did. So I just wanted to say there was a lot there. But
Biggie,
continue.
you were gonna say something?
Oh, I was just saying, wait till you watch the Rum Diaries. Gives you a little more insight into Hunter's, well, his earlier years, not young years, but his earlier years.
All right, all right.
Great flick.
Since we hit the topic, I would think it would be interesting to have a certain couple of individuals alive today, Hunter S. Thompson being one of them, George Carlin being another, to see where we're at now and what they would have to say about that. Those are a
Yeah.
couple voices I would be just to be a fly on the wall for a minute. So yeah, just had to put that out there. We're going to move on to the pre-review, lighten it up a little bit. The movies get lighter-ish. Okay, no, they don't. These movies aren't that light. What's up, Mr. Muncie? We're about to go to the pre-review. Check this out.
How's it going, Real Steady viewers? I'm Sean, and I'm back with this week's pre-review. Sorry I took some time off. Things got kind of crazy with school ending and a change of schedule, but I'm hoping that I finally came up with a schedule that will allow me to make this a steady part of my week. So, Real Steady viewers, here we go with this week's pre-review. Here's 3 films I think you will enjoy. First, let's let the nostalgia hit as Paramount Plus brings us Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. I was a huge Mike Judge fan growing up. I loved Beavis and Butthead. I always thought their humor was so funny. Yes, I know where Bald Knob, Arkansas is. After a judge sentences Beavis and Butthead to outer space, they end up going through a black hole and end up in 2022. This looks like it will be a wild ride, the way any Beavis and Butthead movie would be, and I cannot wait to watch it. Coming to theaters this week, Scott Derrickson is going to bring us Black Phone. Now, this is starring Ethan Hawke, and let me just say, I think we are watching an actor that has been through many trials and tribulations and is reaching the golden years of acting. I love Ethan Hawke, and I'm really thinking that this horror movie is going to be amazing. When a young boy gets kidnapped, he finds himself in a soundproof basement, and the only thing ringing is a phone on the wall that doesn't work. But is it help from the victims from the past? This looks like it'll be a great wild ride, and I'm definitely going to watch it. And the final theatrical film this week is Elvis. Baz Luhrmann is going to bring to life the story of Elvis Presley growing up in Tupelo, Mississippi. Tom Hanks is going to play the man, the Colonel, Tom Parker. I cannot wait to watch this. Austin Butler looks like he's doing a great job as Elvis. Love Elvis's music, dislike Elvis's music. You cannot deny his influence and the changes he brought around to the music industry and how it even affects the music we listen to today. This looks like an incredible story, and I'm definitely going to see it. All right, Real Study viewers, I'm Sean, and I'll see y'all next time.
And that was Sean with the pre-review. 3 new films coming out this summer for you guys to check out, and they are looking good still. Movies are still getting made, and they still look good. I haven't given up on film yet. But let's move on to the next movie. The next movie being The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. This is another Terry Gilliam film. This was Heath Ledger's final film before his tragic death in 2000. I think it was 7. Am I wrong on that? I feel like I'm
Heath
wrong on that.
Ledger. I want to say it was
2008.
2009 or
2008.
8. Yeah.
So
I think it was
this was the one he, obviously we heard about his death right before The Dark Knight came out. So, of course, that had an impact on how we all viewed that. But this was technically the last film he was filming. He wasn't actually even done filming when he passed. So they actually tried to figure out a way to still show his final performance by having a few of his friends, including Johnny Depp, as we mentioned earlier, Colin Farrell. Yeah, that's right. Colin Farrell, as well as Jude Law, come in to play the same character, but in different iterations of Dr. Parnassus' patient. Dr. Parnassus is played by Christopher Plummer. We've got Valentina played by Lily Cole. And then, of course, the amazing Andrew Garfield playing Anton, who is like the sideshow spokesperson, I guess, in a sense. Anyway, so there's my intro for the film. Biggie, what was your first impressions of Imaginarium, Dr. Parnassus?
My first impression when I first watched it, see, I had actually just purchased it without watching it. I purchased the DVD and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch it tonight. So take it home, watch it. Immediately, I'm like, I gotta watch this again because there's so much to take in. Terry Gilliam has this sense of movie magic about him, and this story is very much uh, in his world of surrealism, and he brought it forth, and I I don't know how to phrase it, like just the look of this film, especially whenever they're going into the I guess the Imaginarium, especially that it's just like everything is so like what it's wondrous and beautiful, but also this movie has times when it's dark and scary too. So I don't know. I really enjoyed it. Uh, this is probably Heath Ledger's finest acting. Honestly, he's been in a few other ones. I know that he got the Oscar for The Dark Knight, but I feel like this movie he did so much better. And I loved that they brought in Jude Law and Johnny Depp and Colin Farrell. They all did excellent jobs, respectively.
Right. Lala.
I'm a huge Heath Ledger fan, so his death really affected me, which I'm like, didn't know the guy, but it still affected me. There's only been a couple of actors throughout history who like passed away, and I'm just like, it kind of hurt me in a way. I was just like, or like famous people, I'll say. And Heath Ledger is one of them. Like I have read a biography, like I have a biography of him that's so tattered because I read it so many times, and y'all know that like I don't really like to read books and stuff. Like as crazy as that sounds, but I'm more of a visual person, but this movie, this film was very interesting. It was very bright and beautiful and colorful, but also dull at times. So that was an interesting, like, it was like bright, dull colors, like on the outside, and then when you went into his the Imaginarium, it's brighter depending on where you at because it's like the devil has part of it, and then um the concept of the story is like I feel like it's one that's kind of like told before of like selling your soul to the devil and you get something out of it, but it's kind of like the whole like in lore with genies, you don't make wishes with genies because they always turn on you in some way, and so and usually that's how the devil works. If you sell your soul to the devil, or if you make a bargain with the devil, like something it's not as clean or clear cut as you would like it to be. Like to me, that's a trope that's used a lot. But what makes this one a little bit better is the fact that it's the Imaginarium part of it, right? Like the going inside this guy's this immortal man's like mind and seeing over the years that he's lived all these things that like are accumulating in his mind, and the way I was looking at it was like he could feed off of other people's because he was giving people if people chose imagination like those ladies were choosing imagination, it's like they're so telling. We didn't get to see what they saw, which I wish we could have seen what like their imagination created, because I'm assuming that one even though it's his Imaginarium, it's like once you're in, you're connected, so you can imagine some things, you can bring some things to the forefront, because essentially Heath Ledger's character does that towards the end. Like he brings his own trauma into the Imaginarium. I thought it was very interesting. Like this was a film that, again, that was like chaos, chaotic, but I could follow the pieces a little bit better than Fear and Loathing. Me personally, I don't think this is the best that Heath Ledger did, but also it's because it's only half of his performance. If we were able to see maybe everything throughout, like him throughout the entire film as these different versions that he was supposed to be, then maybe, even though I don't think that's how it was set up, it was only set up like that after he passed away, which I still think in this imaginary world it works very well. I feel like he couldn't really do this with a lot of films. I won't say this is his best. He didn't do bad. I don't think he did. Like that's just me personally. No offense to you, Vicky, or anything like that. But I I enjoyed what he brought forth. I enjoyed that the other actors were able to keep the feel that Heath Ledger had, and to the point where I wasn't like, oh, they're different. Like he didn't feel different as Johnny Depp, as Colin Farrell, as Jude Law. He didn't feel different. He always
Johnny,
felt like
you could barely tell.
it was. Listen here, Biggie, Snitty, y'all rhyming. I can't do it. Snitty, this is why it's kismet, man. It was times where Heath Ledger would do something, and I would be like, why does he look like Johnny Depp? And then Johnny Depp would do something in his like limited scene, and I would be like, why does he look like Heath Ledger? It's like
Oh yeah,
it
before
is
you
like I
even
love that
see
everybody
Johnny,
had
right?
before you see
You're
him. It's
like,
like
was that John? No, that's Heath Ledger. I did that a couple
you know,
times.
it's because it's like they both Heath Ledger gave a very Johnny Depp like performance to me. Like I could easily see Johnny Depp be the lead of this film. You know what I mean? I don't think I would be like I don't think it would be like way better or way worse, but I could see why they asked Johnny to come in to.
How do we know he wasn't offered the role and Heath took it? Like, because that happens. Like Johnny could have been like, no, I'm doing X at this time, and Heath was like, I'll take it. But then when Heath died, Johnny's like, oh, I'll do it. I imagine all four of the actors that are in this movie were auditioned for it or something. Yeah.
Probably, but I also think that if I remember correctly from what happened, hey Betsy, so because they had respect for Heath, they came in and did the film. Because I think a lot of people were they were kind of like hesitant at first, and then they were like, "This is like an homage to him. Like we're not gonna let his last film kind of drop because of like what happened." And I don't know. I just think like if Johnny was the lead in this, I think it would still be just as good as a film because like they blended very well and how he looked in the ponytail and how he acted, and it was very like I don't know if he pulled from Johnny or Johnny pulled from him. I don't know, but everybody's performance was very seamless to me, and that's what I really liked about it. I couldn't tell the difference between Keith as Tony or George, as she called him. I was like, whoo, she sucks at naming people because he'll look like no George to me. I didn't know his name was Tony, but he didn't look like a George to me. But I think that to me was like the best part was seeing, because I knew the hype behind this movie. I knew what went into it. I knew he passed away. I knew that these actors came in to take his place. I was really excited to see how each acted in his stead, and I think they did like very, very well.
All right. I agree with you. Well said. I think that this film probably would not have done as well. I hate to say it, had Heath not passed away. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it that this is a much more of an art house style picture. Movie is not for everyone.
And people wouldn't have gone to see it, but because he died, they were like, I want to see what he did his last movie.
Agreed. And Terry Gilliam isn't like a draw everybody to the theater kind of director. Like he's got a niche audience and makes niche films. And that's fine. That's what he does. He does much more odd films. What I think is interesting about this film is that it doesn't feel like it takes place today, and yet it 100% takes place today. Like it takes place in 2009 when it was, brought out. But it always feels like they're sitting in the 1800s somehow, like in a different era because of the way that our cast is dressed and the way that they're acting as street performers. There is a bit of there's a downside to this film to some degree. It feels like they've taken the Romany lifestyle and co-opted it into this English family's way of living. And so instead of it being a traveling English family, it feels like a giant Romany style carriage and performance. Even the tarot cards is kind of racist in that sense. There are definitely some questionable things, but again, this was made in 2009 before much of what we've tried to do with film has changed, and so it's not a judgment call. It's much more of just I noticed as I was watching, and wouldn't have noticed that 20 years ago or 10 years ago. But it did stand out to me. That said, though, I do like that although we love Heath, he's technically the bad guy, and I like that.
I love that.
We couldn't tell that right away because he felt like a good guy, and even as they were showing him being, as he figured out who he was pretty quickly, even he didn't necessarily know he was a bad guy until he looked deeper inside himself. I
think Anton helped him with that too.
I agree. I love Andrew Garfield, and every time I see him on screen, I understand why. The guy brings it in everything. I swear he learned that sleight of hand stuff. At least it seemed like it to me, to act like the street performer. And he
Yeah.
he embodied that part really well, especially when he walked up as the like tree monster
Like
thing
the little
with
yeah.
the cow head, like, and then I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, and then I'm like, that's Spider-Man in that thing. That's weird.
Right?
I love that he's like there's something charismatic about Andrew Garfield. Like there's something extremely charismatic. I think he could get on screen or stage and just say something crazy and he'll smile and you're like, oh, that's amazing. So for him to be like the first person you see of the cast, like he's the first person you see. So when he comes out, if you've never seen this film before and you've seen Andrew Garfield or something, because this happened for me, when he came out behind the curtain, I was like, oh, I was excited. I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna enjoy this film. Like I immediately was like, oh, okay, it's Andrew Garfield. Like
Right.
it can't be a bad film. Like so, I immediately had that connection to it. Now I'm pretty sure when you saw it in 2009, maybe you did know who Andrew was
I had seen
because
Social
he
Network,
was
but that was it. He hadn't done Spider-Man yet.
right because he was on I saw him on he was in Doctor Who. In 2005 he was in Doctor Who. So like I think but I wouldn't have been like Andrew Garfield, like because I haven't seen the
Oh no,
charismatic part of him.
Social
You
Network
know,
was a year later. My bad.
because he was oh yeah, it came out 2000. Like he was I think I would have recognized him from Doctor Who, but the fact that I know him as this like charismatic character from Spider-Man, it lended itself to this. I don't know.
Agreed.
I just think Andrew Garfield can't do no wrong for the most part.
I am 100% with you, and
I feel like he puts a lot into what he does.
I didn't remember he was in this until I watched it today. And as I was watching it, it's like, oh, and he's playing Mercury, which I was like, oh, that's great. So not only has he
Yeah.
played Spider-Man, but now he's played Mercury. So he's just getting all over the place with the fantasy characters. This seems to be, yeah, this was his big first role.
Yeah.
Other
Shout
than
out
this,
to,
TV,
I didn't know that this
TV,
was a
TV.
Terry Gilliam film. I didn't know this.
He was in the other
directed by Terry.
Berlin Girl, but under no credits essentially.
Yeah, he wasn't credited, I don't think.
And then a couple more TV shows, and then this movie, and then from this
Yeah.
movie, he got a
He
couple
was
others.
like Andrew
So his
Garfield.
performance in
But I
this got
mean,
him Social Network to some degree.
yeah.
Oh.
And I didn't know Terry Gilliam directed this, and he directed Fear and Loathing. So it's funny. It's two directed by Terry, two starring Vern Troyer, two starring
Johnny Depp. And I bet you we could probably find more connections.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, we could start getting into producers
yeah.
and start finding even more
Oh,
connections.
easily start getting into producers. I will say that I love Christopher Plummer because of Sound of Music. I love me some Christopher Plummer. But I was literally watching this film and this thought popped in my head. I was like, somebody with the gravitas of Christopher Plummer decided to do this. I was like, so part of me was like, the film, because I was watching it and I was just like, I don't know about this film. I was really going like, I don't know about this film. And then I was like, if somebody like with Christopher Plummer's like background, like his performances, how he acts, signed up for this film, it has to be something in this film that I'm not paying attention to. So maybe look at it harder, maybe pay attention harder, because I'm like, I respect Christopher Plummer as an actor, as a performer. Like I said, I love it. So I was like, it made me watch harder because I was like, if he signed on, if he decided that this was something he had to do, I'm missing something. And so once I looked harder, and I found the story between like the father and the daughter. Again, all the other tropes of like the devil and stuff like that, like pushed aside. Forward to this was like a father and a daughter, and him not even real, and him being a man of like immortality. That's kind of like I feel like he's jaded in some ways. Like I don't care about my life because I just want to do this thing, but then it's not your life anymore because you have this daughter now. You know what I mean? So it's like you had to now you have to prioritize. Now you have to think, and then it's like the weight and the guilt and the drinking and this is why you can't succeed and this is why you're eating scraps because it's just like you know the things you've done, you know what's coming next, and like so when I got to that aspect of the film became way more enjoyable.
Fair, that's fair. I do like the devil portion of this. I generally enjoy most movies. The devil shows up and he's acting in a less conventional style way, and picking Tom Waits as the devil was a brilliant move because he's smooth. He's got that great voice, and his mannerisms don't make you feel like it's the devil.
It's something
you know,
effortless about him,
right,
and
but there's
it's
still something on about
yeah,
him, right? And
yeah, yeah,
so I like that they, you know, it's just two dudes betting over a few thousand years about things, and the devil keeps
hmm
egging him on, like, you want to bet again? And that's just the devil's way of getting more souls, you know. And I thought that was interesting. I did think it was
yeah,
interesting that the way for the doctor to get souls was to essentially let you go into his steal your soul. And I would
right.
assume channel that to the devil. He's not giving those to God or anything. It didn't make sense to me. And about, you said it earlier about the way that the Imaginarium works. From what I gathered, it's whoever's brain is in there is what's being projected, and the
Yeah,
doctor is basically in a meditative state to allow that to happen. And then if he chooses to get involved, he's much like Neo in the Matrix, where he can like take over and do what he
yeah, like
wants.
when he becomes like a balloon and all that
Right,
kind of
right.
stuff and things like that. Yeah.
But other than that, the reason that they said no more than two, no more than one person at a time, is because whatever the dominant brain would be over. And of course, you see this
hmm
Tony Al and how
Well,
that
at
all
the
breaks
end,
down.
yeah.
Which she's an interesting looking woman. She is not your standard conventionally looking beautiful girl, but there is
Well,
something about her.
she's a model. She's a model in
Right,
real life, so like that's you automatically assume models are like beautiful, and it's like very she's very like alien-ish in her looks.
right, right, but still beautiful.
So
Like
yeah, but
there's
no, she's so
yeah,
beautiful.
she's
Yeah,
definitely. But they picked the person to accent the kind of aesthetics of the film, which are
yeah,
beautiful but with sharper edges in a sense. And that's,
yeah.
you know, and I think
Right.
she embodies that. Happy Father's Day, Marley, and welcome. We have not seen you on the show in a while,
I
sir.
know.
Good
Happy
to see you
Father's
here.
Day,
And hashtag Oscar Isaac. Daddies.
daddies. Okay.
What about a zaddy? You
Uh,
guys know what a zaddy is?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, I figured you did. Anyway,
Come on.
so yeah, I guess it's. I don't even want to say that out loud. Never mind. I'm not even. I almost said that, and I'm so
Oh, I'm
welcome,
sad. I
Marley.
wish you would have said it.
Nope, I'm not going to say it. Um, it is interesting still. Again, this is another one of those films where we're talking about a film in 2009, and yet this girl is 16, and yet two grown ass men are being sent after her.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm just like,
I was just you said it before I could say it,
I just,
because I was
yeah,
like, people always talk about these films or talk about these actors, and they're always like, how why would they play this character? This is like people always have some kind of like uproar about it. But I'm assuming that because he died, everybody kind of left Heath Ledger alone. But he's a grown man, and and I know she's not technically 16, but her character is still
no,
16.
her character's
Oh,
15
well, she turned 16.
in the movie at the last
Yeah,
minute, like, but she's
she turned,
15 through most of
but
the movie.
still, she's a child, whichever way you want to slice it. She's a kid, and you kind of forgive the devil because he's the devil and he's
That's his job,
ageless. Essentially, he's
right?
immortal.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't care. But Tony, but obviously you can tell he don't care about kids neither. So
Well, yeah, and he's a
it
bad
makes
guy.
sense.
We know he's
So
the
it
bad
makes
guy.
sense
Right,
that he
right,
would
right.
go after a child because he don't care about kids no way. Like look at the whole charity thing that he went through. So, but I still was kind of like, oh, nobody said anything.
Well, and there is a moment, there is a section where she says it's the age of consent, and I'm like, well, this is a
No, it's
British
not.
film. Well, it's not an American film. It's
I know
taken. It
it's
takes
not.
place in Britain. It's shot in Britain by British actors, British director, British producer. So it's hard. I don't know their laws at all, and whatever. I don't care.
I'm
Um,
assuming, other states let they people drink and smoke at way
right,
younger
right.
ages
So
than
it's
Americans.
possible, and so
So
it
it's
it could be
possible.
our society judging a
Still, bro.
different society's films. Exactly.
Still
Um,
judging.
Still judging, all fair and all true. But I just thought it was interesting because even Andrew Garfield's character, might have been 20,
Yeah,
maybe 18,
maybe.
but like we're pushing it, like we're
If
really
that,
pushing it.
yeah.
So
I'll
um
say he's between 18 and 20, but that's still like he's still grown,
right, and
you
of course the dad, Dr. Parnassus, has no issue with any of this, it seems, because he even knows there's a
No,
crush,
he has an issue. He had an issue with Andrew Garfield's character. I don't think he paid attention to Tony's character because he was so charismatic that everybody kind of got like drawn into
but
him,
it wasn't his
except for
age.
Antoine.
It was where Anton's character was in life. It was more who he was rather than bothered Dr.
Yeah.
Parnassus. From what I gathered, again,
I mean,
it
but if you
didn't.
think
It
about
wasn't
it,
a
Dr.
discussion.
Parnassus was hundreds years old when he met her when he met the mother. Which I will say this though,
Hmm.
I don't like. This is what I do not like. I don't like this, and I don't know. don't like when they do the casting thing when like the kid's mother is the kid, where
Did
the
they do that
acting
in
is
this
like,
movie? Did I miss
so
that?
yeah, so like her mother was her.
The photo, yeah.
It was played by her. Like when he goes when he's talking about it and he like the woman that walks down the street and she puts the money in it, which is the correlation from the beginning to the end. She puts the money. It's her, but it's her mother essentially. I never like when they do things like that because it makes me uneasy because like your father fell in love with a woman with your face and then you come out looking, it's just weird. It's like how can you know that the father won't be attracted to his daughter because she looks just, it's a weird thing for me. I just never like that. I'm like, I get it, that's like lazy act. It's like we want to save money, we don't have to pay another person to come in and do this little scene.
Especially if it's one
But I
scene.
mean, especially if it's one scene, and I get that, but change her look up in some way because even though I look like my mom, I'm not a carbon copy of my mom. Like I'm not saying that there couldn't be.
No,
But
like
it's
my
just
girls look like
weird.
me and my wife, not just my wife.
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just weird because it's just like he loved this face. He had sex with this face. And your daughter has the exact same face. It was just I don't like you could have given her like, you know, like heavy lids or made her face different or I don't something different. It just
Different color
made
hair.
me very different color hair, something. It just made me very uneasy when I watched
That's
it. I was
fair.
like, this is weird.
Terry Gilliam films are known for making people uneasy. That's what he's known for doing.
Oh, I'm
His
sure. I was
job
like, I thought that was
is,
just gross.
and gross is also part of what.
If
So this
Biggie,
is not the only movie like that. Yeah, Biggie, please.
Age of consent in the UK 16.
It is.
I just looked it up. Yeah.
wait,
So-
say it again.
So the
The
movie
age of
was in
consent
right.
in the UK is 16.
In Britain or London or whatever.
Apparently,
Yeah, the UK, United
In
Kingdom.
the UK, oh yeah, that makes sense because I think they can drink alcohol around the same age or like maybe like a little bit younger.
Yeah, I didn't
something
look
like
into
that.
that, but I
I
think it's
forget
in
what
the
it
teens
is.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the teens. Like they can do a lot of stuff. Like they give their kids like a lot of autonomy and like Americans we repress and then we wonder why we're doing the stuff that they do because we
I think they can
we are
drink
the
in
land of the
Germany.
prudes. Yeah, no. Even when I was younger, I had German as a class, and my German teacher was from Germany, and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, at 14, my dad would send me down to get beers because I'd be like, it's for my dad," and they would believe her, and she would take it home. And she didn't drink it. I mean, she literally took it home to her dad. But that's how mild they are and some about it. It's just interesting because we're literally talking about a film from another culture. So like, as much as it's still a bunch of white people culture, and it's definitely my descendant of English, folks, it's still weird and still I think important to bring up, which we have.
But also, like, if it wasn't weird in America, we wouldn't call it weird. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm 35 years old and I grew up with 18 is like an age in which you can do some stuff, and then 21 is an age where you can do some stuff too. And then after that, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. But like, not any time before that. Essentially, unless you got some type of consent from your parents, that's what it is. Like, so I don't know. I mean, she seemed real excited to be like age of consent. Like she was so ready to have sex with like a grown man too. Like that's like it wasn't like she got duped into doing this. She set out to do this, and again, it's one of those things. It's like that trope where like you kind of go for the guy that you know is bad because come on, he's a little off. I know she's a little naive. I know because like she's growing up in this traveling like circus, and her father doesn't really give her any, and the only men are the three men in which are in this room with you, or like
Yeah, you got Percy, her dad, and Anton. Anton's like the default, right?
Exactly. So it's just like you don't want to go for the default, even though you probably should, because he's been nothing but a gentleman. He's nice. He doesn't take advantage of you.
He encourages you to do your own thing and be yourself.
He's like, if you want to leave, let's just go together. I'll go with you. Like you know what I mean? Like he's none of these things. But then somebody comes in a little more attractive than him, a little older, built different. No, literally, like a little, like a little. And
it's only because Andrew hadn't grown into being a full man yet. That's why.
No, exactly. And you're like, so she kind of like went and seeked him herself. Again, doesn't give him carte blanche to be like 16-year-old, let's get it. He's like 30. Like, so, like, that's weird. But it's like, she wasn't, the only thing I guess I could take out of this is she wasn't a victim, is I think my point. And even with the devil, she was like out for my dad, I'll guess I'll eat this. I'll go to hell. I'll and for the devil, if it's no game, he doesn't want no parts of it. Is this easy? I didn't want it to be.
That's boring.
I,
He's got
I,
eternity to spend screwing with people. I'd get bored too, right?
exactly. But I honestly feel like there's not a lot of immortal humans or immortal people, period. And I really feel like the devil, his best friend was like Parnassus. Like I really feel like that was his best friend.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Like we've been planning this for centuries. We planned it for like years. Like it's been what we do, and nothing has gotten in the way. But now this child will. Like, my kid will get in the way of this game that we've been playing for a while. You know what I mean? Like I get some souls, you get some souls, because he said something like your dad would your dad would hate me, and I was like, why would the devil care? I was like, oh, that's your best friend. Like, oh, okay, it just like snapped. I was like, you care about him being mad because that's your best friend, and you don't want him to be mad. I was like, okay.
So let's talk about the story aspect of the story. So one of my favorite parts of the film is the beginning when they're sitting in the monastery and they're talking about how these monks are here telling the story of life so that the story of life can continue. And the devil comes in and goes, ha ha ha, I'm going to stop all of this to prove you are wrong. And then our character, Dr. Parnassus, stops and goes, yes, but can't stop the story. It's being told all over the world. People are telling stories all the time. And I'm sitting there going, oh, this is why I love film. This film is literally saying film has to exist for us to exist. And I like that. I glommed right onto that.
Yeah, I like that part when he said that. Not when he said, because I wanted to know what his excuse would be too. I was kind of like the devil in this moment. I was like, well, he did stop y'all from talking, so he kind of proved y'all right, and then he kind of proved y'all wrong. But then for him to be like, no, because obviously if it hasn't ended, somebody else is telling the story. Right. And I was like, well, that makes sense because people tell stories like all the time, and it's like in different hemispheres, different places. And I was just like, oh, I was like, that's nice.
Right.
Like that's yeah.
Who did the best job, Biggie, between the three actors that played Tony?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really enjoyed Colin Farrell as Tony. I liked his segment when he was in the Imaginarium. I think all of them brought the same kind of chemistry and the demeanor that Heath had with what's in Tony's real mind, of course. And all of these men are rip-off artists, con artists. And well, it's only one guy, Tony, sorry. But
is it?
He's a con artist, and this show, the one with Colin Farrell, I think it's awesome because it shows exactly what Tony did. So I think that part of the story. I don't want to spoil it. You guys can if you want, but
this is a spoiler show, so that's what spoilers.
Well,
spoilers.
The fact that he took from children, and then he did the thing he does with the pipe in his throat, and then that was a great segment showing you exactly who he is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now
I feel like all three encompass a different part of him.
Right. That's what I was going to say. They were different versions of Tony. The Tony that we see with Heath is the complete fake, and then the other three are little glimpses.
Yes, yeah. Because his character, each time we see a different version, it ramps up. It's like when we see Johnny Depp's character, he's just exploring the Imaginarium. He's like, I've never been here before, but he's still working his con man thing on the woman. Actually saves her life inadvertently. He saves her life, and so and then like when you see Jude Law's character, he's fully immersed in this world. He's like, okay, but I can escape now. I can leave. Like this is the part of him that wants to go, because like when he was getting closer and closer, he's like, I've never been that happy. I've never experienced that type of sensation. Like you saw this part of him, and then we get to Colin Farrell's character, you see the complete dick that he is. You see who he actually kind of is. He smacked a woman. He would hit a child. He would steal from children. He would steal from children. You see all these things you see everything that he is encompassed in one. And I don't know. I just thought it was really good. I felt like it was very smart I'm just gonna say Terry and Co. because I don't know, how everything went behind the scenes, but I just think it was very smart on them to be like, oh, okay, our principal actor passed away. let's figure out how we can do this. Okay, this is an imaginary world. Maybe people see what they want to see. Maybe people see what they need to see, and they'll never see him because, again, he's a con man. He wears many faces.
Right.
So when he's in this world, his face continues to change. And so I think that was
And even the
like,
Russians noticed this.
yeah,
It was still the same guy.
they
We
were
know
like,
you, but we don't know
they
you.
were like, it's you, but it's not you. And then when they wiped his forehead, they were like, it's string him up, it's him. Like they
Right.
just, so it's just, I like that they were able to, in the midst of this tragedy, still figure out a way to make this story make sense. Because if you come into this movie not knowing what happened to Heath Ledger, you wouldn't miss a
You would
beat.
think this is what it was meant to be.
You would think this
Right.
is what it was meant to be, and I think that's a testament to, like, because they said that they stopped production stopped for a while, and they stopped for a while to figure out what they can do, how they can do it, and I think they did it in a very, very seamless way. And Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell donated the money that they made from this film. They gave it to his daughter.
Yeah.
So
It was awesome. Mhm.
Awesome.
they gave it to Heath Ledger's daughter. So I thought that was like even, and that just shows you they didn't have to do this film, but they did it for Heath and they did it for his family. I think
Any final thoughts?
it's a rewatcher.
It takes more
Definitely.
than one watch.
Yeah,
It's a rewatch.
I
I
say
still
watch.
enjoyed my initial, but it's say it again, Biggie.
I was just saying I'd say at least watch it a couple of times because I swear the second time I watched it, I found so much more that I had missed just because there's so much going on in the background, especially when they're in the Imaginarium,
Right.
you know? And also, I really like, and don't get me wrong on this, but, they're all the same character. But it also, I think it kind of pays tribute to Parnassus himself because he's lived for so long. He's had to do different things to survive. I don't know. I just think it kind of mirrors that. I always thought that was kind of
Well, he's had to
neat.
be many people too.
Exactly.
We've seen him be a street performer, a monk. We've seen him as an
Mhm.
unsuccessful homeless person. Like
Yeah.
we've seen the gambit from him as well. So yeah, there is a sense of that. Yeah.
Yeah, the the casting of Tom Waits, like you guys said, as the devil. Oh man, that's just one of the most perfect castings, I think. He's just great in everything. In fact, I was just listening to some Tom Waits before we got on live here. So,
Yeah.
well, before I got on with Snitty.
I like when people play the devil as not the devil that we think we know.
Hmm.
Because as a person who has like read the Bible, has read the description of the devil and what he is, he doesn't come with like hooven clothes and like horns, and he comes to you as like a man or a woman or somebody. Which I need a woman devil, by the way. Anyway,
Bedazzled.
Something better.
I mean, can we get another one? But I just need like a female. I just need like a devil. I digress. But I'm saying this to say that like I like the portrayal of the devil when it's more closely related to like being earthly kind of way. Like I guess I'll say earthly in a way because like the devil gives you what you think you need. Right? He gives you like things that are fleeting, and he makes you feel like you wanted to do it, you want to scrap it. So like, or you go the opposite way and be like what is his name, Peter from Constantine, when he plays the devil in Constantine. It was just a slimy, like almost cancerous type of devil. Toxic, like and that's great. But then you'll go to like Al Pacino and The Devil's Advocate, and he was like the suavest, like devil. You so okay.
There's so many names. Sorry.
So many. Listen. I have so many, man. Like even the TV, like Supernatural TV show.
Or Lucifer.
Devil, or Lucifer. Like he was like that, but that was a Lucifer. I felt like that was a Lucifer. It was a whole different Lucifer.
I think that man has attracted many a lady to his, following.
Yes. But I just feel like I like it when it's like a devil that, like even Lil Nicky, like the guy that played the devil in Lil Nicky, it was comedic. It was very off the, it's like off the beaten path of what you think the devil would be, but it still like aligns with like what I've read about. So it was just like I like when people don't do the obvious. You know what I mean? Like I like it when the devil wears a top hat and he's smoking. And he's just like, come on, man. let's go have some fun and just 'cause people draw you in like that. Like humans draw you in to their shenanigans just by being regular people. And I feel like why wouldn't like it's been working for all these humans? The devil was like, I'll do it too.
Well, the
I can just
devil's
do it
a
better.
psychologist, if anything. He's been watching the way
Oh
humans act, and he
yeah,
knows exactly how to get in
yeah.
their ear and change them.
And he's been
Let's.
influencing the way we act too. So I just think it's he's
I
like I
want to
can do this
leave
better.
time for Scanner Darkly because it's a film
Oh
that
y'all gonna
deserves
have a
it.
great
Yeah. So,
conversation.
well, you literally watched all but 10 minutes of the film. So,
Yeah.
we're not going to ruin much for you. It's just going to all make sense. So let's rate this
Okay.
really quickly and move on. I actually give this movie a 6.5. Don't think I'm going to run back and watch it again after this,
Respect.
but I think everybody should watch it.
Respect.
That's where I'm at. Biggie.
I'm gonna give it a solid 8. I do like it. I watch it maybe once a year, I think. Yeah. I don't think I watched it this year yet. But I don't know. I just think the story is something that obviously draws to something within me. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just really enjoy it, and I hope others watch it and get as much enjoyment out of it.
All right. Lala.
I give it a 7. I give it a solid 7. It's to me, it's rewatchable. Maybe not like tomorrow, but it's but because it's a heavy film, it's like I can't do that tomorrow. But I give it a 7. I feel like it's rewatchable. I feel like it's entertaining, and I feel like it has enough story with the whimsy to keep you kind of like in it and wondering like, okay, so how does this world work? So what comes next and all that kind of stuff because they don't really, and it's just a nice story. Like it ends very well. Like I love that. Even though I was curious,
It's been a few years. That's all I could figure.
I know it's been a few years because obviously the child you could probably chart by the child's age to kind of like get how many years. But I'm just curious, like, and this is just me as a person wanting to know everything about everything. Just like how did they get out of that life? Like how like when he gave her soul back, like what did they do? Did they see that did she think that her dad was dead? And then she just was like, okay, let's go live this life. I just want to know what happened in that. I feel like a short story could be told of like when her soul got back and then like how her and Andrew ended up in this place with their child. Because like the way that the timeline works in his mind is that he's been walking around for like however long, then happened to just pop up to literally see her do what her mother did to him. And I'm like, did she know that that was him? Was she not really paying attention? Like, I don't think she knew because I'm pretty sure if she knew, she probably would have said something, which is why Percy was like, you about to ruin the vibe, are you? Like, just chill out for a minute, type of thing. But I would have just loved to have seen that. But that's just me. That's I guess that's just me wanting more, like wanting more scenes. And sometimes you don't get that. You just
You
get what
got
you
to
get.
use your head cannon to fill that in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I have so much headcanon to be like, it could be this. I
That's
have a
what fan
multiverse.
fiction is.
I have a multiverse of headcanon. That's all I write is fan fiction. But yeah,
I'm just saying.
so
I mean,
probably write some Dr. Parnassus fan
write a
fiction.
little Dr. Parnassus fan fiction and then figure out how Terry Gilliam does his art style and mimic it in an art book.
Yeah. That could be intense.
I could do the fan fiction part. I could do the fan fiction part because I can describe things very well. So I can describe it in a Terry Gilliam-esque way in my writing.
So we have 1/2 hour. I would like to move on to A Scanner Darkly, which is the final film in our evening's film pursuit, if you will, or review. We will be reviewing, like I said, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, as well as Everything Everywhere All at Once. Those are both really long titles. Next week, so please come check us out, and we'll be discussing those in depth. Scanner Darkly is a Richard Linklater film, 2006, starring Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder, Robert Downey Jr. before he became Rory Cochrane, as well as a fun little bit by Woody Harrelson, others. This is another drug-addled film, and maybe Dr. Parnassus wasn't, but at least a lot of it had a lot of the same elements. So it wasn't about drugs, but it was about the mind. This film has a very different style about it. Biggie, I know you looked into this, talk about it. So I'm going to let you start and explain what cell shading is and maybe take on
Sure.
it.
Well, this film is animated, and it's animated in such a way that it uses existing footage and you have artists that go through and add all the line work and everything for each high definition frame, and then they put it all together, and there you go. It's called interpolated rotoscope, and it's just so fascinating. And when you watch this movie, uh, you'll definitely see how the art overlays and how awesome and intense it looks in certain aspects, and the freedom that they have in this to do other things that they may not be able to do here in the real world is also just unlimited, you know. But it's a fantastic process, and Linklater used it on a different film as well. I can't remember the name,
Waking
the title
Life.
of it. Waking Life. Thank you very much. Didn't that have the kid from another Linklater film? It was the kid from Dazed and Confused, right? I think
So
he
this
was in
actually
Roy
it.
has
Cochran.
Roy Cochran as well, which is also from who is also from Days. And
Right.
I will look up Waking Life for you while you continue, if you want, about hoping.
But very cool, and it seems like it came a long way from the Waking Life to where it is in A Scanner Darkly. Um, but anyway, that's the first thing that drew me into the film. Besides the big names, you know, you got Woody Harrelson and RDJ and you know Keanu and Winona, and it's this film. It speaks volumes. If you're a fan of Philip K. Dick, you definitely want to check it out.
Real quick, it's Willie Wiggins that you were talking about, the kid that plays Mitch from Days of Confused that's in Waking Life, as
Yeah,
well as Ethan Hawke, who,
yeah.
of course, a child star. Um, Lala, what was your first impressions of A Scanner Darkly, especially the rotoscoping, the cell shading? What did you think of that?
I saw this a while ago, like a while ago. Um, and I thought it was weird. I thought it was like weird, like a kind of reminded me of like when they be like when Mike Flash. Like that's kind of what it does look like that, but it doesn't look like that at the same time. So like, but that's kind of like the feel that it gave me when I first watched it. I was like, I don't think I could focus on this film. But after a while, like your eyes kind of adjust, and you're like, okay, it's like it's animated, and it's just kind of like they just kind of move a little differently. I think. When I first saw it, I only watched it because of Keanu Reeves, and I was like, been a fan of his for quite some time, and I was like, this is kind of weird, and so I didn't really understand it a lot when I was younger to watch this. But watching it now, well, this felt, I feel like this film is very interesting. I feel like we are easily going into the route where we are invasive and don't care about civil liberties and are watching people and determining whether or not they letting humans determine if humans are right or wrong, because essentially that's what they were doing on like phone calls, and they were like, no, don't arrest this person, and it's just like, you do I even know that you're doing this? Like you're just listening into my phone call to see if I'm doing something, and it's just like, and then it's like the people with the power are able to block themselves out and not be looked at or not be watched or not be. So I felt like it was very, even though this was like released in 2006, which means that it was like around the time I was like 18, 17, 18, this film was being made and written. And then by the time I graduated high school, after I graduated high school, this film was released. It's very ahead of its time in the sense of like where, how far technology can jump and like where we would go as a society. So like I thought that was interesting while I was watching it. I feel like everybody was their name. Crazy as that sounds, and I will explain. I feel like everybody was there. RDJ was RDJ. Woody Harrelson was Woody Harrelson. Like it's
Do you
like
think they were being themselves in this film?
I feel like they were what we're used to seeing on film.
Well,
Yeah.
Like
RDJ. So this is 2 years before he gets the role as Iron Man. This is post Trouble, because I try to avoid talking too much about it because he doesn't want to talk about it, so I'm not going out of my way to talk about it.
right.
And since he had a reputation, to me, if you look at the 4 people that are hired for this film, they
Oh,
all
they
had a
all have a
reputation for being
reputation.
kind of
Yeah.
bad kids in Hollywood and drug
Yeah.
users, and Winona was known for stealing and other things.
Yeah.
And so I think there was an intention from Linklater to absolutely hire those people because of
Oh,
that.
I'm sure, because it's like it's not a far reach for them to kind of like dig into these characters and like be these characters. But I just felt
Right.
like from an actor standpoint, like Robert Downey Jr. is one of those actors who doesn't really change when he's on screen, and to me,
Don't tell
he
Marvel
was
fans that.
like I feel like he was Robert Downey Jr. I feel like Woody Harrelson was Woody. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. Like I don't mean like they were playing themselves, but I feel like they were playing like maybe the
Caricatures
intermediate
of
parts of
themselves.
themselves or characters like not even
They were at
yeah, I
ease
just
with.
they were it was just like the type of jokes that RDJ does in everything that he did in this film. Like
Yeah.
you're not, so you won't look at him and be like, well, what am I? This supposed to be Robert Downey Jr. Yes, it is, because you'll see that it's him. Like same thing with Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson played like this like hippie stoner laid back, which is kind of like what he does in all his films,
And in real life.
but maybe and in real life, but maybe his outfit changes. You know what I mean? Like
He had
this
hair
one,
in this movie,
you know
while
what I
in
mean?
real life he
Like
doesn't
you
have
know,
hair.
and
Right.
you know what I'm saying? When Winona Ryder played like this very like sexy kind of laid back odd, which is what she does in her films. Keanu Reeves, same thing. He played like it's like I'm the straight man, but I'm just as weird as everybody else, but I'm kind of same type of.
But there was a bit of
So
whoa about him in this.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know exactly. So like everybody, they were all their names. Like they were what you're used to seeing.
Yeah.
So you're not uneasy when you're watching this. I thought it was,
Right.
but I thought it was
So,
very interesting.
Does anybody else get from all the cockroaches in the beginning with Rory Cochrane, because he does such a good job of twitching and the cell shading on top of all of that, and him with the cop. I love where like it goes into his thought bubble and he imagines the cop killing him, and then it's just the cop like just trying to drive by and doesn't care.
Same thing when he was in a diner and he
Right,
like this
right.
lady was getting naked, like the waitress was getting naked in his brain, and I was just like. Oh.
But what's funny is that that's what he was thinking. But when he was offered, the opportunity to do that, he was like, no, I'll take the drugs.
No.
I'll take the drugs. I don't want, it is funny how they're each adored and loved by fans now when we're all troublesome to some degree. I liked Robert Downey Jr.'s character, although he is without a doubt the antagonist of the film. Like he's the bad guy.
I love that he was though.
Right.
I love that he was. Yeah.
I could be murdered. I love that, like, ridiculous way of talking, and that he had a paranoia about him where he kept just making shit up because it worked for him and it worked along with the drug. I think that his way of getting high on that drug was to make shit up and be paranoid. Like that's what. And you could tell he's the reason that the car broke down. Like I could tell. You messed with the car before we left, dude. You had to. You even just said you have all the tools, weirdo. Like, and yet his friends didn't pick up on it because they're so
out of it.
Yeah.
Because you think that like there's like this camaraderie in shared experiences, right? So you're like, we share this thing. You wouldn't dare hurt this thing that we're sharing. And Robert Downey Jr.'s character is like, yeah, I would, because I'm tired of all y'all at this point. So yeah. But I don't know. The quintessential scene for me for his character is that like if you were just as high as his friends and you didn't really look at what he was doing, when he like let Woody Harrelson's character like die essentially or like die, that's when you should have known something was wrong. Like that's when you should have known. Like I mean, you should have known something beforehand, but if you didn't catch it after that, you didn't catch it during and after that, and it's like you're like, are you even paying attention to this character? Because he literally said, I kind of could just sit there so calmly, like he's kind of like a psychopath. He just sat there very calmly and watched this man choke to death.
He did call 911.
Eventually.
You know what, City?
Casually.
Betsy, when we're done with this, smack him in the face for that comment. Please.
But he did. He called 911. He was like, I got an asphyxiation, maybe cardiac arrest.
He thought he was dead.
Yeah.
He was very calm about it.
Look, you're talking about a junkie. You're talking about a junkie who knew that he would have more opportunity for hits if there was one less person in the house.
Yep.
That's not why he did it though. I think he did.
I don't know. Are you sure?
I think that I really because like what Keanu Reeves' character what's his name Arctor
Bob Arctor.
Bob Arctor. He thank you Betsy she's on it. Nice. When he said that
it's Father's Day, don't get me hit. Sorry.
it's not gonna be Father's Day in like 20 more minutes for me. So go on my time, Betsy. Anywho, Keanu said something about his character, like Arthur said something about his character, like heavily paraphrasing. He said something like, I realized that he's a person who like he doesn't kill you, but he waits for the opportune moment to like let you die.
And almost like he knows when to let those moments happen.
When to let those moments happen. Right. So like he's essentially like a psychopathic murderer.
But hold on.
He just
You're talking about
Uh-oh.
a person, Bob Arctor,
Yeah.
who didn't even know he was Bob Arctor. So how can we rely on what he thinks of another character? It's just not valid material.
Okay, I gotta say this
Okay, go ahead.
real quick. Do you guys know that when Bob was in the interview with the two doctors and he's talking about what's going on with him, do you know
Mhm.
that they described how we're seeing the film as the effect that the drug has on the people?
Yes.
Yes.
Just making sure.
He.
So I love those meta things that take us even further. There's another movie. I'm not going to say the name of the movie, but I'm going to put it on our show for you to watch. But I don't want to mention it. And a biggie, if you know a movie I'm talking about, keep it to yourself, because I genuinely want Lala to see this movie with no taint. I want her to just walk right into this movie and watch it. So I'm now not going to bring it up for a little while so that we can avoid it sounding like slip it in one episode. And then I'll tell you after, because it has the same, like, holy shit
Oh, what's the
effect.
movie? Because I want to watch it.
You're gonna, but I'm gonna do it in a way that
Yes.
you won't know. So I promise. And you will like this film. I'm almost certain of it. So yes, I like that this movie. Whoa.
I do that all the time in school.
I like that this movie basically makes you feel paranoid. You're essential, and so did Fear and Loathing for that matter. Like I'm sitting there feeling paranoid.
Yeah.
Both movies, I watched them back to back, and I'm just like, man, what is somebody gonna break down my door and come take me away? I just kept feeling that from these films, and this movie definitely has that like enemy at the state, but not just
Yeah.
not just a thriller. Like, no, they really might be watching me right now, and I think these kinds of movies have not lended well to this NSA concept where people filmed all the time. I'm
Yeah.
we may be, but if you're not breaking the law, I don't think it really matters. And if anything, I would claim that this movie is now like Idiocracy documentary about modern times, with the exception of the like where to hide. Other than that, we have the opioid crisis. We are 100%, putting ourselves in comatose states with entertainment and internet and drugs and all these very. And
Right.
they can watch this whenever they want. Not that they are, but they can. And so I don't think this movie isn't now. I think this movie is placed now, because it even says in the not too distant, and it's 2000.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
and here's the kicker: these people don't necessarily know this. Did you guys know Alex Jones is in this?
I just read it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's the
I
guy.
had no clue.
Yeah. So he's the guy standing outside going, "Don't let the government take you guys," and they come and tase him
Oh
and
my
drag him away in the
God.
van. That's literally
Yeah.
Alex Jones, the
Yeah. He's
wacko
Yeah.
guy.
dude. Yeah.
And Linklater's on record saying that they were friends because he was anti-establishment for a long time, which films are pretty much all anti-establishment. And
Right.
so to see him become a stooge for the last 5 years is kind of like the opposite of the way he was for a long time. And so they're not friends anymore. But that's the most he's ever said on it. But you put the guy in 5 seconds of your film. I don't trying to promote him, but still kind of funny. Kind of this. All three of these films have these like dated issues to some
Yeah,
degree,
very
which is
much
weird.
so.
Not all movies do, but these three. We want to tell La the end.
Please do.
So, Bob is essentially hopelessly addicted to the drug. And
Mhm.
so we find out that Donna is, of course, the police chief person or the head of the undercover portion.
Right.
And she goes to her partner, who is at a diner, and they're talking about how poor Bob, they've run him through the ringer just to get him addicted to drugs so that they could, without his knowledge, put him undercover to go down to the farms to take out New Wave. So they actually they send him to the farms where they're growing the flower, and New Wave is growing the flower for the drug.
New path.
New Path, sorry, not New Wave.
Yeah.
But their farms are all for that the flower, and they hide them in the cornfields down below eye level, essentially putting those suits but over the flowers.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
That's
Bob,
interesting.
he actually has a little thing to remember to take a flower to somebody, and so that's how they're insinuating that they're gonna beat them, in essence.
And when they even show him tucking one into his sock,
Into his
so that he
shoe,
can go
yeah,
on
so, yeah.
Thanksgiving and give Donna the flower. He doesn't remember her name. He doesn't remember his job. He's so wiped out from the drugs. He just remembers he's got to give a person that flower at some
That's
point.
so crazy that they essentially in a drug epidemic in this world, you knowingly made somebody a drug addict, so
Yeah.
without their knowledge, so that they're more like easily coerced into this place where you can. Whereas you probably could have asked him, he probably would have just said okay, but like you. And they said, I think the doctor said that his mind, it's possible that his mind will snap back, but then it's also possible that even after he's weaned off of it, he's out of his system, his brain might still be messed up. So you will knowingly destroy a person.
So that's what the doctor said, but they covered that his brain will never snap back. They
Yeah,
very
that's
much
crazy.
covered that. They did this to him, and it's permanent.
But I don't. But here's the thing too, though, right? RDJ did a lot of things. He kind of snapped back. I got faith.
But that's
for,
real life. This is a drug that's beyond,
Listen, I got faith in Bob. I feel like Bob could do it.
Scanner, clearly. Bob sobers up, right?
You want me to read the last quote of the film, which is from Philip K. Dick?
You should.
It's the one they put on the screen. Okay, it says in memoriam. These were comrades whom I had. There are no better. They remain in my head, and the enemy will never be forgiven. I know this book had a lot to do with a lot of deaths, having to do with ODs, stuff like that, of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dick was a writer that was more famous in the 50s, 60s, 70s more than any era. Those were an era pretty heavy drug use. Not that we're not anymore still, like it's still perpetuated till now, but
cyclical.
It's definitely where most of it began, or at least societal level, rather than just be like counterculture. It's A. Dick's books are so bizarre because he takes things that most people think about and then just takes them further. Blade Runner is Philip K. Dick, as well as many other good. We can couple Minority Report, Total Recall. Let's see, another.
Which Total Recall? The original one?
So he actually wrote the short story, and then that's what made Total Recall movie, which is technically not the same as the short story. And then that Colin Farrell thing,
for wholesale or something like that.
Let me. I have to. I don't have it all up in here. What can I remember? Where we can remember it for you wholesale.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
And it doesn't take place on Mars. The short story actually takes place it's a memory thing. And a lot of his books and themes are around the mind and memory and psychosis, because that's what he delved in. He's the kind of in a weird way. This is why I thought this would be interesting. We've got Hunter S. Thompson, we've got Philip K. Dick, and we've got Terry Gilliam, all people that are weird in the head. And I don't mean that in a negative way, just like they see things differently than most people do. And it's obvious in the stories. I think important, but I think harder for people to get their minds around. This one's maybe more palatable than the other two, but I still think people struggle with this.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can be taken in by the world and then forget about what's actually happening in that world. Like the animation style is so different and not really used at all. Like even before, like I know it's been used a little bit, but not like really a lot. So like if you come into this, not something that we're used to. Like we're used to like a Pixar animation, a Disney, like we're used to this type of thing, 3D characters. But to see kind of like a sculpted over type of vibrating, constantly moving type of image like that, it's. I think people would be more into that, and then be like, "Oh, everybody's saying words." Oh, okay. Let me pay attention to words, So,
but I think Linkletter approached this from the sense that if you wanted to show weird things like the many-eyed creature that comes to tell Freck all of his sins for the existence of time, that you could do in CGI, but it wouldn't have lasted. In 2006 CGI would have looked like shit at this point. And I think this lasted like, well, okay. So Dr. Parnassus was 2009, and some of the special effects in that were like
But I'm
the
just saying
devil
though,
is the snake. I was like,
I
that's
think
pretty
I think
bad.
yeah, that was weird, like the whole look.
Yeah, that
But
didn't
I
look
mean,
right.
but I also think it's I don't know. It depends on sometimes who does your CGI. I'm not saying you're
No, yeah.
wrong. I'm just saying that there are
No, a good
films
team, but I don't think this
there
movie
are
would have been big
right, there
enough.
are films in 2006 that like when you see their animation and you watch it now in like maybe 2020 or something like that, 2021, you're like, hey, that's held up. That's not bad. But I guess I think like I said, it depends on like the team, like you said, like the team behind it that does it because But also I just feel like with the type of film this is, the rotoscoping was like a perfect thing to put with it.
Agreed.
Well,
Like
everything's kind of like always
yeah. But
shifting, right?
also
Yeah.
if it's about drugs, if it's about like this they lost the war on drugs, obviously, and like a company is like, well, the best thing we can do to make money is manufacture this drug that people keep partaking in. You kind of want, and then to make it so that we are looking at this world as though we're on the drugs. That type of animation is like perfection for it.
Right.
It just lends itself to the world even more.
I agree. It also made shifting between people. The suits, I think, is where this all started.
Hmm.
When they were probably
Yeah.
talking about the suits, they're like, how are we going to do that? How are we going to make this real? Because even CGI, that would be tricky as hell today to make the suits look right, let alone
Right.
20 years ago. So I think there's many reasons, but then also switching between like Winona and the other girl that he slept with, in those
Yeah.
shots would have been very hard to do without it
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
cartoon
But I love
world.
that
It's easy to get the skin tones and
I love that they set that up at the beginning. He was like, be careful because like when you're on camera, like if you don't edit yourself, it'll catch you as like yourself, which I think is crazy because you have this high tech piece of technology, but cameras are like the eyes, man. Every movie, a camera always catches you doing something. It catches like ghosts, catches entities, and catches like everything. And then, for him, he thought that and I think for a minute his eyes saw what he needed to see, and then he blinked, and it was just like, because we see one thing and then we blink, we're like, oh, okay, it's back to what I thought, so I'm just gonna be like, whatever. Then for him to go to the camera and be like, what? What? It is just,
yeah, like the camera saw both of them, which
yeah,
is
the
really
camera
weird.
saw both of them, which was just like very interesting, So
We should have a Brendan Fraser week. Is that because you've seen the Doom Patrol behind Biggie?
Ooh.
I'm assuming.
yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
sure. I mean, yeah, I am not like what movies, I guess. The Mummy, okay, and then
I don't like your tone. I don't like your tone.
I love Brendan Fraser, but I also grew up after he became like
Bedazzled.
you guys, the millennials, love him because the Mummy was like your guys' movie. When I saw the Mummy, I was like, oh, that's cute.
Listen, don't put me in. I love him from Encino Man. Okay.
That's my movie with him, right?
Yeah.
I loved him in Encino Man, and I love Pauly Shore, but Brendan Fraser was always like an aside to Pauly Shore to me.
I've been a Brendan Fraser fan for a long time. Listen, I enjoyed the Mummy as well.
Monkey Bone. Don't make me watch Monkey Bone.
The third one was trash.
If you guys want to hear Mr. Snippets just trash on movies, then we can do that. But
honestly, I have 3 that I want.
Oh Lord. Okay, so put them in the thing. One thing I wanted to talk about, I have a nitpick about this movie, about Scanner Darkly, and then we can.
Oh, I love nitpicks.
So this is a little thing, but it's just one of those things that stood out to me this time, and I'm like, okay, of course they ultimately figure out who Bob is, and like Donna figures it out. That's fine. She's a good detective. She's doing her damn job if that's what she's done. But I think she knew all along, based upon what we find out at the end. But anybody who doesn't know who Bob is, if you saw the 5 people in that house or the 4 people in that house, there's only one 6'3" motherfucker. Everyone else is 5'8".
Yeah, they're all pretty short.
None of them are going to be the other. Like that I was like, no, this doesn't work. Keanu is tall and skinny. The height, you'll never change with those suits. You're never going to change the height with those suits. So it's not Winona. It's not RDJ, who's tiny compared to Keanu. That stood out to me. I was like, man, that bugs me because you can't take it back. You can't find a way to the height. that too
You
much
think
of a
the
nitpick?
average film viewer is gonna notice that though?
No, of course not. It's a nitpick. That's why it's a snidbit nitpick. So,
The good
and I
stuff.
got my F bomb in there, which I'm always trying to do. Although that might have been R rated considering I dropped it with the mother. So
Ooh,
I don't know. I'm not
aficionado
I
on
don't work
that,
for the MPA, so and I wouldn't want to because they would let so many things go through.
right?
You don't want me working for them. We need to rate this
ABPG.
film. So yeah, I you know, I think things are rated a little too harshly, but that's just
Right.
all R-rated movies that are R because of language would be P. All of them.
Yeah, yeah.
No, literally in
Yeah.
this day and age,
Same thing with
literally.
same thing with just basic nudity, like just people being nude would not make it anything more than PG for me. PG-13 if
No,
it starts to grow, like go down a path, and then R if it becomes graphic. Like R should be reserved for graphic things only.
R should be conserved like should be preserved for like full frontal nudity and like gore.
Right.
I feel like, but if it's like a booty shot or like like side boob or so, I still feel like those are PG-13 things. I'm pretty sure
I
kids see worse than that in their house.
I think nudity should be
Personally.
considered G. It's we're all born that way. That's just my opinion. We're so much. I was raised in a household which was the opposite of most households, where the violence was what they didn't want me to see, but they didn't care about sex, and that to me seems like the more logical place because sex is what creates life, while violence is what takes it, and yet we're okay with exceptionally violent shit in PG-13 movies, including unaliving the living shit out of people, like in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where they kill hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on screen, not just like implied. And yet we're all like, woohoo, good guys. I was like,
But it's different. Honestly, it's different because you don't see. It's like the Disney killings. It's
I
like
know, but they're still
if
dying.
somebody gets stabbed.
But you see a
but
boob and like, oh, the world's over. You know what I mean? And I'm just like,
I
yeah.
know that's what I'm saying. But it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like R-rated is like when you get stabbed and like you pull back and you can see the blood on the knife, as opposed to Disney when you get stabbed and
they're doing spray these days in Disney.
They are doing spray in Disney these days. I'm digging it.
They're doing decapitations and spray and still getting PG-13 ratings.
And I'm digging it. But also, I like smart things. We're gonna rate because I know it's like 2 minutes.
I know.
I like
Go ahead.
smart deaths too. Like in Tarzan, one of my favorite animations. Love it. When Clayton dies, spoiler alert. When Clayton dies, he pretty much gets hung, but you don't see him, but you see his silhouette.
What?
And I'm like, that's worse to me than actually seeing the body. And I like stuff like that. Like everything doesn't have to be thrown in my face.
Right.
Give me be cinematic and be smart and be creative and do some different stuff with that that'll still get your point across. But you ain't gotta gross nobody out unless that's your plan.
Right. No, if your movie's meant to be gross, here in Loathing in Las Vegas, then it's gonna be gross. Like that's yeah. Okay, let's rate this movie. We did start a couple minutes late, so I'm not worried about going over a couple minutes. That's why I didn't like race out of here. But let's go ahead and rate it. I rated the last one. Lala rated the first one. Biggie, you go first.
9.5. This is one of my favorite movies because it deals with something that affects me, which is the drug crisis in the real world here. And so I've actually lost quite a few people in my life because of things of that nature. So this movie definitely hit home where that's concerned. I love the draw, the animation, the acting, the story, the plot, the kind of mystery about it, and the final shot where that quote is just kind of brings a whole new meaning to it. And I actually bought the book after that. So
nerd. No, it's fine.
And what I am, but if you're really interested, go check out the writing because it's not the same as the movie, obviously, but it's definitely got the core structure of it there.
Okay.
All right.
So 9.5.
9.5. Lala.
12-year-old me probably would just barrel through this just because For me now, I give this a solid 7. I give it a solid 7. It's not a bad film. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite film, but I enjoyed everybody's performance. I enjoyed everybody's performance for me was just like A1. I don't think there was like a weak link in the bunch. The story, like
Right.
kind of all said, right? I don't think the story, like we all said, has stood the test of time, and it's kind of like in the near future is like today.
Yeah.
So, and that's what it's feeling like. And I like films that I can go back and be like, ah man, the world was great in the '90s. Look at the stuff we did, and it was like these little things. But then I also like films that can stand the test of time. Somebody can watch this 50 years from now and be like, yo, remember in the year of like 2025, man? Like that
When
was
that was
great.
happening, whoa.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
this movie came out in like years before that, and they, you know what I mean? Like I like films that do that as well, and like I feel like this film could do that. I've watched it twice now, so it's a film that obviously I will watch again. So yeah, a solid 7. Solid 7.
I like it. This isn't going to surprise anybody, but this for me is a 10. Uh,
What?
Ke-
Shocked.
I like it.
Keanu, Linkletter is one of my favorite directors. I pretty much watch anything.
You do have a lot of link letter in your letterbox, I think.
I grew up like Days of Confused was a movie I saw when I was 15, and so that was my first experience with a Linkletter film, and
Yeah.
I loved that movie. Like
I've never
most
seen
people,
Daisy.
you say this every week with movies that I love. Somebody write that down. That has to be. We'll have to do like a Linkletter night or something, because Boyhood is a movie that everybody should watch as well. They
Yeah.
shot that movie over 7 years and let the kid grow up on film. So like every summer
His
they would go.
daughter was in it.
Right. So like they'd go and film every summer and then make it like a thing for 3 weeks until the kid was 17. And so you actually get to watch this kid grow up, which is a unique thing to film. I love that he does that. Or
It's very.
we could do
I like
the Midnight Trilogy is another thing that we could do, where Ethan Hawke, what's her name? I'm terrible. Ethan Hawke and a wonderful actress do a series of movies together every 10 years. They come back and play the same couple over every 10 years.
Oh, Before Sunrise.
Before sunset, and then before
yeah,
midnight.
yeah,
And they're
yeah.
talking about before dawn as something to do in like 7 years or something.
Delpy. Julie Delpy, French
Julie
actress.
Delpy,
Yeah,
that's right.
Julie Delpy. Yeah, Julie Delpy.
And I've actually never seen them. Don't come for me. Don't anybody come for me.
I haven't seen them
It's
either.
so
I know
good,
of them, but I haven't seen them either. Can I just say that Ethan Hawke, man, is having a resurgence, and
He is.
I'm loving every
Yes.
bit of it. I'm loving every bit of it. So
I want to see the black phone so bad.
Me too. I saw the trailer for that and was like, this looks crazy stupid, and I want to see it.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching Ethan since Explorers. Like he's been on my radar since I was his age. Well, he and I are almost the same age. So yeah, I like that
You're
guy.
older than everybody.
I am older than everybody on this show, at least. Maybe one day we'll have an old person, but that's people that are older than me. Kidding, of course. That said, this has been week 33, episode 33 of The Real Study. We will be back for episode 34 next week, starring.
Thank you for joining us.
Starring.
Oh, for sure.
And thank you, definitely. But we'll have
Sorry.
myself, we'll have Black Girl Marvel, Mr. Marvel, and all the movie things should all be returning, as well as Superhero Talk, also known as Michael, will be joining us to discuss the multiverse shows.
Yes.
So that'll be exciting. That said, we are going to raid my little brother, Johnny, a Johnster, if you will. And I'm doing it now, so if you guys could stick with us and
stick with us so you can hear him call me Black Marvel Girl.
well, you could correct him. We could correct him this time. But anyway, you guys all have a great night.
Listen, I correct him every time. Bye, guys. It's so funny. Yeah, we did. It did. The Real Study is ready with the party of 9 raiders. It's working.